Hi guys, and welcome to another TechRadar show. Now, many are predicting that 2014 is the year virtual reality will finally break out into the mainstream. The Oculus Rift is causing big waves in the gaming community right now, and any tech enthusiast worth their salt will have been keeping a close eye on it. Earlier prototypes of the Rift came with a few problems, with motion sickness being the most commonly reported. At CES this year though, the new Crystal Cove prototype was revealed, which is said to do away with many of these. So what's new? Well, the new Rift is low persistence, which basically eliminates motion blur and gives a much more natural image. Improved latency also helps to stop the motion sickness caused by older versions. There's also a new external camera that tracks infrared LEDs on the headset and helps track your head movements a lot more precisely. This lets you do things like peek around corners, look under tables, look over the edge of things. You get the idea. Frustratingly, there's still no concrete release date for the Rift, and we don't know exactly how much it will cost either. Of course, that hasn't dulled our excitement, not just for the Rift, but for the future of VR gaming. So Hugh, Oculus Rift, a hot topic right now in the tech and gaming community. We've been following it closely from start to finish. If this finally takes off, how is it going to change the gaming landscape?
I mean, potentially massively. I mean, this could actually be like the jump from 2D to 3D in gaming. It's a whole new level of immersion. The developer version of the Oculus Rift is getting very close to the final release version, but there are still a lot of doubters, and I can understand that because there have been a lot of attempts at virtual reality in the past that just haven't worked. This time it feels like the technology is at the point where it will work, and Oculus have been very brave to go all out with this, and I honestly think it will take off. I think we're going to see, at first it's going to take Oculus to release their consumer version, and then everyone else I think is just going to follow. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be huge. It's a whole new level of immersion for gaming. And the thing I find that's great about Oculus is almost instant immersion. It's a bit weird when you first put it on and you're thrown into this whole new virtual world, but it doesn't actually take too long to get used to. Whereas if you look at other kind of similar products out there at the moment doing virtual reality or augmented reality, like Google Glass, for example, something like that takes a little more time to get used to. So if you're wanting to sort of quickly show someone how it works, the Oculus Rift is quite a convincing product. I mean, I haven't met anyone who's tried the Oculus Rift who hasn't been blown away by it instantly, and I think that says a lot. I mean, that's really exciting.
And Oculus Rift isn't the only kind of headset on the market. There are some entries from Sony and Vuvix. Now, these aren't VR headsets per se, are they? They're a little bit different.
They're a little different at the moment. The Sony one, for example, is more something you'd put on in the living room just to watch a movie. Mm-hmm. You put it on and you'll have sort of a big screen in front of you, like a cinema screen when you look at it, but you don't get the full immersion, the all-round view.
So it's not real VR, basically.
It's not proper VR in the same way that Oculus Rift is. So those are different kinds of products, really. Mm-hmm. At the moment, Oculus is sort of proven to have the best of what it's trying to do. But like I said, I'm sure we're going to see others roll out very soon.
And speaking of kind of copycat kind of manufacturers, a lot of people have been asking about the one from Sony to go alongside the PS4. Now, we know that Oculus Rift isn't going to be compatible with PS4, but that Sony is possibly working on their own version?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that Sony and others have been playing around with virtual reality. I'm sure they have. And yes, this rumour of a PS4 virtual reality headset keeps coming up. They probably are working on something. Whether they'll actually push it out the door or not remains to be seen. The thing is that the Oculus Rift, they're aiming it at the PC. They're not so interested in the consoles because of the console refresh rate. So there's a good chance we will see Sony and others, maybe Microsoft as well, doing their own versions just for the console because, if Oculus isn't interested, then it's going to take them to do their own thing.
So Valve very recently hinted that they might be working on their own VR headset. So do we have more faith in this because they are more PC-centric?
Whether Valve is working on one or not, we're not sure. I mean, there have been a few hints that it has. Interestingly, though, Valve seems to be acting more as like an enabler for other VR headsets, namely the Oculus Rift. Oculus Rift and Valve are very close, and Valve seems just interested in getting support for the Oculus on Steam. Whether it does push out its own headset down the line remains to be seen, but right now it's taking the same angle as the Steam machines, where it's not pushing out its own Steam machine, it's just acting as an enabler for third parties to come in and do their own hardware.
And like you said, the Oculus Rift is like a huge step towards making our games far more immersive, but it's still kind of only really scratching the surface, isn't it? Because you're still very much limited to what you're moving yourself around with in-game, so most people will be using keyboard and mouse. So what steps are being taken to make that immersive experience a more complete one?
Yeah, this is something that Oculus has addressed itself, you know, that there is a problem with inputs. There are workarounds, there are other ideas being thrown out there. My favourite is the Razer Hydra. One of my favourite Oculus Rift experiences is Surgeon Simulator, where you'll have the Oculus on and it's kind of a joke simulation thing where you're sort of cutting someone's head open. But my favourite one is a low gravity one where you're floating in space trying to carry out an operation. And using the Razer Hydra as your hands, you've got to kind of reach out and grab various tools in order to do a lobotomy on someone, which is quite fun. But I mean, again, it was instant immersion. Trying that on with the Razer Hydra, I felt immediately immersed in the game, and it was brilliant. It felt so fluid, and it just felt really natural using that. So yeah, I mean, that's just one example. But I think Oculus is going to keep working on new ways of interacting with the games outside of the mouse and keyboard.
And there's things like the Virtuix Omni, which is like basically an omnidirectional treadmill that's being created, and they're hoping to bring that into your living rooms, so you could strap yourself in. Feels like you're like traversing your kind of favorite game world. Do you think that's something that people are really going to want to have in their house and kind of invest their cash in?
I don't think so at first. I mean, I think right now even the idea of Oculus Rift is a bit of a big one for a lot of people to get their heads around. So I think one step at a time. I think those sorts of things are cool, and they are providing some answers to the input problem. But like you said, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to buy a treadmill to stick in the living room for this whole very futuristic experience. I don't think a lot of people are ready for. So I think for now, the headset will have the joystick, the controller, and the keyboard to choose from. Then we've got things like the Razer Hydra as well. And then hopefully from that, we'll start to adapt to kind of new input methods that feel more natural.
Now, I literally can't wait till the Oculus Rift comes out. I'm going to slap my money down on the table as soon as we've got a concrete price and release date. But one of the things that concerns me is the fact that VR's history isn't a rosy one. There's been lots of attempts to get off the ground in the past, all of which have pretty much completely fallen flat on their face. So what makes us so confident that Oculus Rift is the tech to get VR into the mainstream?
In the past, when VR's been attempted, it's always felt a bit ahead of its time. It feels like now is the time for VR to work. The technology can make it work. It just needs people to back it. I mean, Oculus were brave to go out there and do it in the first place. The team's growing. Now they've got John Carmack of Doom. They're getting some big names in there. That support's going to keep growing. And as long as it does, there's no stopping it, really.
So how far off are we from full immersion in games? Well, it might be some time off yet, but you will be happy to hear that there are already gadgets out there aiming to bring the true VR experience to your living room. Here are 3 we're keeping an eye on. If you've been following the Oculus Rift, you've probably seen the Omni in action. For those who haven't, it's essentially an omnidirectional treadmill that hopes to give users a more realistic movement experience when in the Rift. Being able to traverse your favourite gaming world is a pretty awesome prospect, plus it just about manages to keep things on the affordable side at $499, which works out at around 300 quid. Provided you've got the cash and space in your living room, you can pre-order one now. Of course, if you're going to be travelling through hostile environments, you're going to need to be equipped. Delta 6 is one of the most thought-through gun controllers we've seen. You can tap the cartridge to reload, swing the stock to melee, and even trigger a zoom mode by leaning into the scope. Considering this is really just a jumped-up controller, the Delta 6 is a bit dear at over $250. On the plus side, it's compatible with PC and current-gen consoles, and looks like it could be a great piece of kit for anyone looking to get a bit more immersion in their shooters. Here's another headset to keep an eye on, although this one has augmented reality at its core rather than virtual reality. Cast AR works by casting 3D-like images from 2 small projectors above the lenses onto a surface. Where the Rift puts you in a completely fabricated game world, Cast AR throws images into the physical world around you, sort of like a hologram. This means Cast AR has potential beyond simply gaming. And its creators claim that because your eyes are focused at a natural distance, you won't experience any motion sickness. That's it from us guys, but now it's time to hear from you. Do you think VR is about to see its heyday, or is it just another flash in the pan? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to TechRadar.com for all the latest tech news and reviews.